I'm really privileged to be here with you today and hopefully be able to share some of the things that we've learned through our digital transformation in Auto Trader. I think somebody said before it's not going to be something that you do quickly. We started back in 1996, so don't be scared though. As Michael said, I've been with Auto Trader for about 21 years and I started off in an IT support role. I moved into project management pretty quickly, and it was in that role that I had quite a lot of exposure to digital transformation. So I got involved in technology standardization, office moves, consolidation of functions, etc. So that's really the experiences that I've got. In terms of an organisation, when I joined Auto Trader, we were a print and publishing business. We've been about 4,500 people across about 54 offices in the UK. We did have international businesses as well, but I'm not going to cover those. And today we're about 820 people in just 2 locations in the UK and an office in Ireland. And digital transformation is a massive subject. It could mean anything to people. You know, whether you want to move from a bricks and mortar business into building an online presence, whether you're looking at how you can use technology to transform and enhance business processes, or whether you're just trying to stay ahead of your competition and avoid being disrupted if you look at what's happened with the likes of Uber and so on. So there's reasons why people might consider using digital transformation. As a UK business, we're the 16th largest UK website. We've got somewhere in the region of 9 million unique users to our platforms each month, with around 55 million cross-platform visits and about 450,000 vehicles listed each day. It says cars on there, it's probably slightly higher for cars, and then we've got vans and diggers and all kinds of other stuff on there. And when it comes to searching for automotive, in the UK, we get 4 more times the traffic than Google do. We've been around for about 40 years. The guy that started Auto Trader in the UK pinched the idea from America. He brought it back and we started a magazine back in 1977. And that grew to 13 regions, 30 magazines, national titles. And we launched our first website in 1996. So that's pretty early in terms of digital transformation. We were 2 years ahead of when Google actually started their business. And Auto Trader then was a very, very different beast. So as I said, it was about 4,500 people based out of 54 offices. They were all working to do the same thing. Basically, they wanted to get a magazine onto the newsagent shelf on a Thursday or a Friday. But every business ran autonomously. They all had finance, sales, production, accounts teams, and marketing. And the way that they ran those businesses, they had subtly different processes for each function. And one of the first things that I got involved with was a standardization project around technology to be able to help support the businesses better, make sure that they had access to, at that time, things like email, being able to send files from their centres into the production centres as quickly as they possibly could. So those are some of the challenges that we addressed in that very early part of our sort of transformation process. And the way we approached building out this digital capability with the website was not conventional. We didn't ask our magazine people to go and sell this new thing called digital. We basically set up a new team of people and told them to go and sell that, and we left our magazine people still going selling those. And we ran like that for probably about 13 years, and we effectively just cannibalized our own revenues. You could be a car retailer in the UK and be visited by a magazine person, and then half an hour later there'd be one of our digital reps turn up. And we didn't really stop that. We absolutely encouraged them to go after each other's revenues. And we got to a point where probably around 2006 magazine circulation started to drop, because the way that the internet was starting to take off, we noticed that things were starting to change. And if we didn't act, then our business would be not profitable and probably would not exist in the guise that it was. So there's a decision made to start a process of consolidation, so reducing those 13 magazine centres down into 6. And that enabled, because of the technology standardisation that we'd done, we were able to move processes and magazine production quite quickly actually. Over sort of next 3 or 4 years, we shut a number of magazine centres and transitioned the revenues online quite successfully. In 2012, we recognised that magazine circulation was just literally dropping off. It was next to nothing. Our magazines that we produced used to be between 300 and 400 pages. We were struggling to get them to about 140 pages. The content and the quality of the experience was just not the same as it was on digital. We couldn't produce, for one advert you'd get a small image. We were producing sort of 12 images for the equivalent within the website. So the experience was just starting to rapidly overtake for the consumer. So we made the decision that we would be fully digital in 2013, so we stopped printing magazines altogether. And we considered ourselves to be a digital business. We no longer printed our own magazines, we had no magazines whatsoever. And we had a new CEO join us in the June of 2013, and what he found was a business that was digital in all senses of the word, that we didn't produce a product anymore. But fundamentally, the way that we still acted was like a print and publishing business. We hadn't really changed our culture. And the thing that he set about doing was changing the culture. And that's really, for me, where we've seen the most success in our digital transformation. The technology bits and pieces really helped, but the next stage of that journey in terms of the cultural transformation is what's made a massive difference to our organisation. The first thing that our CEO did in conjunction with our newly formed leadership team was to think about the purpose. Why did Auto Trader exist? What is our purpose? And they come up with this really lofty ambition, which was to lead the digital future of the UK's automotive marketplace. And basically what they wanted to do was set about evolving the ecosystem, improving the experience for consumers, retailers and manufacturers alike. In the UK, at that time, the power all sat with the car retailer. If you wanted to know how much your car was worth, it was up to the dealer to tell you that. If you wanted to know how much the finance was going to be on your next car, it was very much up to the dealer. There was not a lot of trust and transparency. And these were some of the challenges that we wanted to change and challenge and overcome. The next thing that he did was set out a series of principles, and I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the Agile Manifesto, but this is basically the same sort of format that they took. And the reason why they did this was to try and help with our decision-making process. And what we're saying with this is, whilst we favour the things on the left-hand side, we do still value the things on the right-hand side, but where it comes to a crunch and we need to make a decision, we will always favour the ones on the left-hand side. And I'll pick out a couple of them just to help maybe bring them to life. So the top one, our overriding principle of achieving our mission. Our mission is our purpose, which is to lead the digital future of the UK's automotive marketplace. Quite often, the way that we operated was that we would make very, very quick decisions based on achieving a financial goal for that quarter, for that year, and not really thinking about what impact it might have on longer-term revenues. And so that principle was very much about addressing that. The second thing was around simplicity over sophistication. We would dream up these amazing product developments, but nobody would check whether the customer wanted them. So some of the things that we did was massive amount of sophistication over complex technology solutions to problems that didn't really exist, and there was no need for it. So we took a much more simple approach to it. And the final one I'd like to call out is around collaboration. When our CEO joined us, we were in 9 buildings in the northwest of England. We were about 550 people scattered across there. We'd got business processes for sorting out customer queries across all of those locations. It was really, really difficult to get things done. We also had different brands. So we were Trader Media Group was the company name. We were selling a product called Auto Trader. We'd got some dealer websites that were called Razor, and then we'd got about, 30 other brands as well. Everybody was looking after their own little siloed bit. They weren't all focused about serving our customers and meeting our purpose. And that goes back to this having clarity on what the purpose is, but then we needed to take away that competition between those parts of the business and start collaborating to serve our customers' needs. So that's what that principle talks to. The next thing that we did was create a series of company values, and these were things that were aspirational, but also the things that people could relate to. They weren't just pieces of paper stuck on a wall. They were really things that people could get behind, they felt, and they could really aspire to. And a couple of those I'd just like to call out. Things about being humble, being honest, open and approachable, looking and trying to encourage your colleagues, but recognising your own mistakes and learning from them. The one around being community minded, so recognising again that where you work, that's a community, and supporting those people, encouraging diversity, advocating inclusion, but also supporting the communities in which we operate as well, so making sure we make a difference back into the communities. So as a result of those things, we created a culture that is digital, is fostering innovation, experimenting with new ideas and solutions, but being prepared to throw the things away when they're not working, challenging that thinking. But it's all based on having a values-driven culture and using data to make decisions around what things we should be doing. And the final piece of the puzzle was, I talked about having all these disparate office locations. To really make the difference in terms of how we collaborated, we took the decision to co-locate everyone in one central location in Manchester. So we moved about 550 people from all those different offices across the northwest of England in about 4 months. And at the same time, we undertook a massive technology refresh project. So we moved everybody to choose your own device. We started thinking about moving to wireless first rather than to having fixed network connections. We introduced lots more technology to help with collaboration, so thinking about video conferencing, thinking about touchscreen technology where people could stand up around and have meetings rather than having it being in a more formal space. And there's some illustrations of some of our meeting space and breakout areas on here. And then in terms of the desking, we took away the pedestals that everybody had, so nobody within our offices has a dedicated desk. We don't have any offices for our senior leaders. They all sit out on the floor with everybody else. Everybody gets a locker. There's no dividers between the desks. I don't know if you can see that on this picture on the right-hand side, but there's the lockers in the background. You get a single screen. There's no dividers. The desks have got a recessed leg, so you can effectively fit 2 people side by side. So we encourage people to pair to solve problems, trying to get different points of view. Rather than just one person trying to fix a problem, we get 2 or 3 people to work together on it. So building that goal of collaboration. So we did that in our Manchester office, and then we got set the challenge of trying to do the same thing in our London office. So in the space of a year, we moved about 700 people into 2 new offices in Manchester and London. So if I could give you 3 things to take away when you're starting thinking about your own digital transformation, it'd be these. You really need a clear vision and support from the top. It's no good trying to do digital transformation in pockets. You will have success, but you will not achieve the big, lofty ambitions that you probably set out to achieve. It's more than just a product that you need to try and build. It's more about an organisation restructure. It really does require a review of how your business operates. The next thing is be prepared to challenge your thinking. If you come up with a plan for digital transformation and you're set on what that looks like, be bold. If it isn't working, or if something changes, something external changes that you hadn't thought about, be prepared to change it. Don't just plough on regardless, because what works for you now might not necessarily work for you in the future. And the third thing, build a culture that really supports your people. I didn't touch on this too much, but we asked our people to change. We asked them to change again and again and again. And for some people, they just absolutely hit a wall. They couldn't change anymore. And when we got to that point, the thing that we did was we treated them with respect, and we agreed that, you know, that it was time to part ways. But those people that have left our business, they look back on their time with real affection, actually, and they know that they were treated fairly, and they've got fond memories actually of their time with Auto Trader. But you need to train your people. You need to make sure that they're clear on why you're doing what you're doing. If you don't explain that to them, then you will always find resistance. So be clear about your purpose, why you're doing it, talk to people, train them, and then continue to talk to them about why you're doing what you're doing, because people will have a wobble and they'll need to have that reassurance. So make sure you support your people with that change. So that's everything I was going to cover. We've got a little bit of time for questions. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, I'm around all day and I'm happy to have any sort of conversation one-on-one if you wish.
Just go back into the scale of Auto Trader. I believe you're listed.
We are. So we floated it in 2015.
Okay.
In 2013, when our CEO joined us, we were still a private company. We were owned by venture capitalists and the Guardian Media Group, who published a newspaper. And when we floated about, I think the value of the company was about £3 billion. Today we're worth about £5 billion.
£5 billion. Now, the fact that you do this so well, you're the biggest in the UK, you've probably got customer experience down in terms of, I'm talking about digital experience. Mm-hmm. So how do you design the right digital experience for a digital customer?
We use a lot of user research, so we've got a team of people that encourage our customers to come in and use our products and understand what's working well. If we release an awful lot of new features to our products every year. So last year we did something in the region of 15,000 releases to our products. So we test with the consumer to understand what the impact of that change is going to be. Do they like it? Does it improve the customer journey, or does it make it harder to navigate our website? And we also do the same with the tools that we build for our retailers as well. So we ask them to come in and understand what their problems are, and then see if that change has helped improve it for them.
Okay. And going from a print publication to a digital publication, did you experience any sort of pushback or resistance from the organization? And how did you deal with that?
So, in the early days when we were selling magazine and digital, there was an awful lot of resistance because people weren't clear on what was happening, why we were doing what we were doing. And when we started the magazine consolidation, we didn't really explain to people why we were doing what we were doing. People found out sort of 2-3 years later really what the aim of it was. And like I say, the purpose that we set out in 2013 was really what made the difference. When we started talking to people about why we needed to make these changes, what the benefits would be to the organisation, it was that actually people felt more bought into it. They felt part of the conversation.
Okay, but I believe you had your own printing.
Yep. Yeah, so we printed the magazines as well as published them. So
okay.
We had both.
And you obviously had to let people go, I believe.
So in most cases, the print facilities we sold to other companies that still required print facilities. So we took decisions based on the fact that we knew we still had magazines to print, but we sold those functions with contracts to still honour the print, if you like. But we knew that they weren't going to be part of our business, so we divested those.
Okay. So the other issue is skills.
Yes.
Down here in South Africa, we getting people with the right skills is an issue. And as you embark on digital transformation, you want to get the right developers and all of that. Did you struggle with that, and how have you dealt with it?
So we still struggle with it today. If you speak to most businesses in the UK, they will tell you they cannot get enough of the right people. And we fundamentally have a problem with universities, colleges and schools not preparing our children early enough for a career in digital or technology. So we, as an organisation, we spend a lot of time going out into the community and working with, partnering with schools and colleges, talking to them about what a career in technology looks like, talking to them about the skills that they need. But by the time they get to university, it's too late. It needs to have happened when they're 6 or 7. People are already starting using tablets and mobile devices at that age, so get them infused early, and then that really helps them. Some of the other things that we've done are introduce things like apprentice programs and graduates. So for people coming straight from university, there's a graduate program that they can join. And for people that choose that university is not for them, and we've got an apprentice program as well, so we'll help them learn the skills on the job.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about ROI. Have you measured the return on your digital investments?
I think the easiest way to look at it is probably in terms of company value, because we migrated our revenues from our print business to online, and so from 2013 we've basically seen growth of between, I don't know, 8 and 11% year on year. But the value of the company has pretty much doubled. So from about, I don't know, between 2.5, 3 billion when we floated to about 5 billion pounds today. So that's, I think that's the real sort of growth. And when you start looking at the ROI for shareholders, yes, that makes quite a significant story.
Okay. Any questions from the audience?
Good morning. My name is Bafana Nkosi from UNISA. I'm just interested in the 2 areas of your business. We obviously, all of us have got a back office as well as your core business. So when you embarked on transforming your business, which one did you do first? Is it your core business, printing business, transforming it into digital, or was it your back office, or were they in parallel? Your back office, that is your financial, HR and all of that, because they also have to align. So was it in parallel, or which one started first, and also which one was a priority and which one was more problematic?
We ran it in parallel. So the website, the digital side of our business, was standalone at that point, and they had a whole list of things that they needed to go through in terms of preparing for growth. So making sure that the infrastructure supported an increased number of users, that the platform was stable, etc. So that was some of the challenges that they faced. We then had our group functions, so the support for our people, group finance. They pretty much already had the models in place for reporting and supporting those people. So the amount of change that they went through initially was fairly low. So our main focus was supporting our print and publishing sites, because that was where the greatest transformation was required. And the primary goal there was simply because we knew that magazine circulation was dropping, and we needed to act quickly to make sure that the business still ran. We knew that the way that the growth was coming within the digital business was fine, and that was taking care of itself with the plans that they had in place, but we needed to put more focus and emphasis within our print and publishing business.
Hi, my name is Candy, and I am a fintech provider to the motor retail industry. I happen at the far end where the customers now purchase the vehicle, and you're happening at the very front end. And what we've certainly found in the motor industry is that dealers really, the only thing that they've changed in the last 20 years is that they've gone from print, from a lead perspective, to a digital lead perspective. What advice could you actually give to our motor industry, coming from the UK, that actually allows them to transform their businesses? Because I'm certainly finding that our dealers are floundering. They don't know how to change.
I suppose partner with an amazing digital marketplace would be the first thing. The second thing was, I'm joking, the second thing I think is understand the value that digital can bring to your business. So we were talking about this before, the consumer experience that you can create for a customer thinking digitally is incredible. So before, we used to have a single advert in the newspaper that people would look at. If you think about the experience that you can create with personalised videos that really describe the features of a vehicle to the customer, get them engaged in the process as early as possible, there's things that they can do that just completely change the experience. You know, a lot of our customers had said that they didn't particularly enjoy the process of buying a car. It always felt like the control was in the dealer's hand. So make it a great experience. I think try and make sure that you're meeting those customers' demands. We've seen most customers have done all their research online, so make sure you're providing things like reviews of the vehicle. How much is it going to cost you to run it? How much is it going to cost you to put fuel in it? How much is it going to cost you to service it, insure it? What are the things to look out for? What are the features that really make a difference to that vehicle? So that's where digital can help, because you can just, the amount of space that you've got to create that content is just vastly greater than it is in a printed product. So you exploit the capability that the digital will give you to really sort of meet your customers' demands. But certainly what we've seen is 67% of people, approximately, have already made the decision on what car they want to buy before they turn up on the forecourt for the retailer. So you need to make sure that your cars are presentable, that they get really in front of the consumer before they get to the forecourt.
Hi there, my name is Christian Nichols from University Stellenbosch. It was interesting to hear your journeys from you establish, you stabilize, you optimize, and now you're digital. My question to you is, so what next?
We had our internal company conference a few months ago, and our CTO got up and talked about us being a technology business. We very much have changed our business from being printing publishing to a technology business, and I think we want to encourage disrupting the marketplace. We want to continue to make it a better experience for consumers to be able to buy and sell their cars. So take away some of the ambiguity around things like how much a finance deal costs, how much part exchange you're going to get. But also we want to be able to support our retailers understand what digital transformation means to them by providing them with better insight of what their customers are looking for and what stock they should be sourcing and how much they should pay for it and how quickly they should expect to be able to sell that, because they don't want a car that's been sat on their forecourt for 100 days. It costs them money. So how can we help them sell more stuff more quickly?
I think from my side, and Gideon from AECI, the question I would like to ask, you have just said that the information was not properly communicated to the consumers. And then I would like to ask you as to whether the change within the organization, Auto Trader, was it properly communicated internally with the staff, or was it something which was enforced? Because more often we find that the top echelons of the organizations are strategizing changes, and then they are implementing the changes without a proper consultation with the staff. And then over and above that, looking at traditional consumers to the technologically orientated consumers. What were the implications, or what was that which was done by your organization to ensure that traditional customers, which are not that well acquainted with the technological know-how of today or the current scenario we are talking about, they are also catered for?
So to answer the second bit of your question first, some of the consumers that we found that were probably a bit more resistant to that change were those in our truck, plant and farm magazines. They liked having a physical piece of paper, and what we recognised was that there was no point in trying to absolutely rush to transform that part of the business. It was probably one of the last things that we did in terms of stop printing that magazine. But what we helped do was run seminars on the benefits to them as a retailer of why they should be thinking about using digital and trying to sell them the benefits. And we had our sales teams work very closely, almost as business partners to them and their business, to help them understand and overcome some of those objections. So that was the way that we took that. I think for a lot of other organisations, they could kind of see what was happening, because we had, I'd say, quite a long run up at this. We started in '96 and it was about 13, well, it's longer than that, 16 years later when we actually stopped printing the magazine, so they had a decent amount of time to see where things were happening. With the way that it was communicated across the organisation, I think our CEO spent time going around all the different business units and understanding the challenges. So he sat with people and listened to things that they felt were not working. And what was created was not just one man's vision, it was very much our senior leadership team, which have got representation from all business areas. That is a result of all the feedback he heard from people on the shop floor, if you like, on the ground. These are some of the frustrations that he set out to try and address and overcome. And before we started, he was very clear. So he got groups of people together and talked to them about where we were going, why we were doing this, and how they played a part in it. And that starting point really sort of set the tone, and that's what really enabled people to get behind it, if you like.
My name is Andrew Maringa from Tendai ICT. I just want to ask, through the whole migration process, was there any job loss? Because currently in South Africa, people are very scared when you talk about digitalization. They think about retrenchment and job losses.
So unfortunately, yes, we did have some people that were made redundant. Where possible, we tried to minimise those losses. So we did reskill a lot of people, and there's an awful lot of people that were with us back in the magazine days that are still with us today, and have made a really successful transition into selling and working with the new sets of products, etc. For some of those businesses, like I said before, we divested them so that they still ran as a going concern, particularly our print facilities. So those people weren't made redundant, they just moved across to the new company. But where possible, we try to look for people that were either coming close to retirement or wanted to leave. So we tried to we took voluntary redundancy rather than compulsory where possible.
All right. I think in closing, I'd like to ask about innovation within your organization. You know, as businesses, we spend time and invest a lot in building our businesses, and then an Uber comes along, and then everything changes overnight. So, as a business that's listed now, you've got your business model in place and it's working for you. How do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you make sure that Auto Trader stays on top of its game?
So part of what we've got two bits of our business. One that we call the core, which is everything that runs autotrader.co.uk and all the supporting services. And then we've got something called Disrupt, which is a bit rubbish in terms of a name, but it's looking for new areas of innovation, new things that are coming. So whether that be things like people wanting to do an online transaction, how could we facilitate our customers to be able to do the whole process across the internet? So be able to find a car that you like, arrange the finance, sort out your part exchange, and have the car delivered to you. How do you manage that? Because at the moment we have no facility to do so. So there's new areas that we're exploring. That's kind of our approach to innovation. But we try and tackle it bit by bit. So if that's the lofty goal to get to doing online transactions, what are the steps that we need to do to get us along that journey? And I said before it's about being bold and challenging your thinking. So we've tried a couple of things, it's not worked out, so we've stopped it and we've gone back, taken the learnings from it, and then started again.
Perfect. It says time is up. Thank you very much for your time. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you very much.